follow the sections, and you should be able to do a good job. Okay, any other questions so far about everything else? And I'll move to the CPT in the time we have remaining. So, from Michelle. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Michelle, for reminding me. For your test tomorrow, I'm giving you a situation, a small situation that is realistic, fictional, but you'll find that it's happened to you as it has happened to me in my family. And in the situation, you have to tell me 5 things so far. Okay? It's a short test. It's maybe 15, 20 minutes maximum, and those who are ESL or IP can have a half hour. That's all, very, very short. What kind of conscience? So go over the charts I gave you and have those in front of you. The 4 kinds of conscience. So they are well-formed conscience, wrongly formed conscience, lax conscience, and legalistic conscience. Then go over the 4 types of guilt. And they are warranted guilt, unwarranted guilt, too little guilt, and excessive guilt. Now, in a situation, I'm going to ask you, what kind of conscience were they displaying and what kind of guilt? Now, you have to be consistent. So if you say it's a well-formed conscience, then it's a warranted guilt, which is associated with it. So there's a parallel between it. If you say it's a wrongly formed conscience, then it's an unwarranted guilt. If you say it's a lax conscience, then it's too little guilt. And if you say it's a legalistic conscience, then the guilt is excessive. So you have to be consistent. So whatever you say for conscious has to be consistent with the guilt. So that's the first part of your test. Second part of your test is what Michelle has asked, is moral object. So what is the actual action, the guilty action, actus reus in law terms? So a student cheating on a test, the guilty action is the cheating. Perhaps, and this has happened to me a lot, students have their cell phone in their laps and have all their notes on their laptop. This is when we're all in class. Or they have cheat sheets with them. They brought with them. Science is really good because they give you like cheat sheets you can bring into class, which in my days would be scandalous. So the moral object is the action itself. So a student cheats on an exam or a test, it's because the object is the cheating. Some people put stickers on the person in front of them with all the notes, because teacher stays at the desk and doesn't do it, doesn't walk around, and so the person in front of them has the notes. One that I learned from a former student of mine who's now a teacher at Warburg Collegiate, students put notes, cheat notes, on the inside of the water bottle. So what they do is you take the label out, they put the notes on, and they stick the label up, and they put the water bottle there, and they have all the notes on the water bottle. This is why, if you notice at St. Rob's now, if you do bring water, they ask that there's no covering because of cheating. Now, a few years ago, people started cheating in school. They had Google Glasses. And Google Glasses had a screen on the inside of the glass. So you're wearing glasses, but you're connected to the internet, and they'd have Google Glasses to cheat. Okay, so however the cheating is occurring, that's the moral object. The next one is the intention. And the intention is why the student's cheating. Now, why would a student cheat a test? To get a higher mark. Okay, that's the reason. You want a higher mark than you can get. Now, the circumstances are what are other things going on that influence the moral object, the action, and intention. It might be pressure from parents, expectations from parents. That's a circumstance. It might be peer pressure. Everybody's bragging about this. It might be pressure to get a high mark to get into a program. There's a student at St. Rob's who applied for, I believe it was life sciences to become a doctor at Hamilton's McMaster, had a 98 average and didn't get in because the cutoff point was 98.3. So there's a lot of pressure that might be put on acceptance to programs at the university. This is why it's so important that you have to understand it. If you know cheating is going on and you see cheating going on, it's hurting you because, sorry, I turned this off. What happens is that person gets a higher mark, your mark is not as high, and your acceptance to university might be in jeopardy because somebody else got there illegitimately. Okay, so that's the object and intention. Okay, so let's see. Azine, I'll come back to that in a second, please. So moral object is the action. The intention is the why, the reason you do it. And the circumstances are other situations that influence or affect you and putting pressure on you to do what you did. Okay, Michelle, does that help you? Intention is why you're doing it, why a person's cheating is to get a higher mark, and then the circumstances. So what happens is when you get caught, we will look at why you did it and what other things contributed to it. So circumstances are part of intention. There's situations that also influence the reasoning for it. So this is why we always ask you why you did it and figure out what pressures you're under and see whether or not they could have been controllable or they had a great influence or a lot of pressure, especially when it comes to parents, when it comes to peer pressure. But a lot of students have a lot of pressure on the parents that pushes them to make a bad choice. So you're absolutely right. Circumstances are part of intention. They're contributing factors. So intention is simply it's a legalistic idea of the guilty mind, the actus, the mens rea. What is in your head? And so cheating on a test is to get high marks. That's why you do it. Why do you want to get high marks? So the intention, the circumstances are like the intention of the intention. If you look at the 5 examples, Michelle, that we covered, you'll see that the difference. Now, for me, if you give one intention and you give another circumstances, for me, they're always interchangeable. So I'm pretty lenient when it comes to, well, that's the intention, though, that's the circumstance. It's all part and parcel. But in cheating on a test, the main intention is to get high mark. And then why do you want to get a high mark? So it's a why of a why. Okay? All right. Let's quickly, Azine, for the question about the test on Friday, I'm thinking about it. We'll see how it goes, but I'll let you know tomorrow for sure. It's going to be secularism worldview and Gospel of Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount and choose life and character. So those are the 4 things we're going to look at. I'll see how I develop this test for you for this distant learning situation, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay, so hang on till tomorrow for that. Okay, let's present now for. I just want to put on top here the CPT that I sent you. Let's see where I have it. Let's play this one first. Not that one. Wrong one. This one. There we go. Okay, so this is your CPT that I sent you. And just quickly go over it. We'll talk more about it in the next couple of days. On the weekend, I suggested that you go over Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter. And at the bottom of the CPT I sent you here, are the websites where you can find electronic copies of the ones that are in the back of your package. The first one is the priest's letter to Martin Luther King Jr. And then the second one here is his letter, which is the one I want you to focus on. So this is preliminary. This is a short video to tell you what's happening at the time. Okay? We'll play it a second, but basically, this is Micah 6:8. And for me, in scriptures, these are the most powerful, or some of the most powerful words for us to live by. And what is good has been explained to you. This is what Yahweh or God, the Jewish word for God, asked of you. Only this: act justly, love tenderly, and walk humbly with your God. So using 5 ideas each of justice. So 5 ideas of justice. And we're moving towards a next unit, which is on justice and freedom and law. So you get lots of ideas. Love and humility in the course. Explain in an essay how Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from Birmingham jail exemplified what Prophet Micah means by good moral living. Okay. So this is the format I want you to follow and the marking scheme. So all you do is make sure this is all covered, you'll be fine. And this is your introduction, an opening sentence, and then a brief introduction. Now, this introduction you do last. Once you've done your whole body, you can summarize what justice, love, and humility is based on what you've gotten from it. So do your introduction last. A thesis statement, which is simply Micah 6:8, and then a roadmap. And I'll explain more of what a roadmap is. Just one sentence. Is a thesis says, this is what I'm going to argue, and this is how I'm going to do it. And then each of the sections, so you have to pick 5 ideas about justice from the course. So tell me what justice means. So you get it from Socrates, from Aristotle, from Aquinas, from Kant, from Levinas, anywhere you want. So explain what each of them. You have to do these separately for each idea. Then you got to find something in Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter that talks about justice, the kind of justice you want to talk about. And then the third type is explain why you picked it. What does it show about justice? You do this for 5 ideas of justice. You repeat the same thing for love and the same thing for humility or piety. And then you do your paragraph conclusion. And then the second part is, having done all this, having taken the course, explain how Micah and Martin Luther King challenge you to act justly, love tenderly, and walk humbly in your search for the good moral life. So this is you. This is like a supersized reflection on your part, having done everything. And this is going to be worth 6 marks, 2 marks for each section. So think of this as 3 different reflections and journals put together here at the end based on everything else. Okay, and then you conclude with statement. So I'll go over this in more detail with you. But before we go, I want to play this video that I found that sort of explains what Martin Luther King Jr. was going through and the circumstances, situation he found himself in the 60s. So let's play this.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
To Alabama Governor George Wallace, the continuation of segregation was a solemn promise. To Martin Luther King, it was a scourge he vowed to overcome. In the city of Birmingham, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, whose church and home had been bombed because of his activism, began a campaign to integrate the downtown shopping district. King joined him in March of 1963. They both expected an extreme response from Public Safety Commissioner, segregationist Eugene Bull Connor.
One of the good fortunes of the civil rights movement were its enemies. Where could you find a better enemy than Bull Connor of Birmingham?
King submitted to arrest on April 12th, Good Friday, to draw maximum press coverage. Attorney General Robert Kennedy had asked King to avoid confrontations with police, wanting to pursue civil rights gains through the courts, not the streets.
Dr. King said, Mr. Attorney General, I can best serve this country and my people by focusing on the evils of segregation. He said it's a corruption of the society, it's a corruption of the soul.
Sitting in his jail cell in Birmingham, King wrote about that corruption. He responded to an open letter that appeared in the Birmingham News that same day. It was titled "A Call for Unity" and was signed by 8 white clergymen. Their appeal made reference to outside leadership, calling the protests unwise and untimely. King wrote in the margins of that newspaper, "I am in Birmingham because injustice is here." He went on, "Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known." The sentiments King expressed in the letter had already made an impact on students who had committed themselves to civil rights activism throughout the Deep South.
We were greatly influenced by Martin Luther King Jr. and the philosophy and the discipline of
He
nonviolence.
just passed away.
But we didn't like the tempo of change. We wanted to speed it up.
On May 3rd, students re-energized the campaign. Some were in high school, others were even younger. The Birmingham campaign became known as the Children's Crusade.
It was easy for us, Black students like myself in the South, to say, well, if they can do it in Little Rock, they can do it in Montgomery. If they can stand up, we can stand up too.
Connor and the police represented.
When Bull Connor ordered the police to disperse the protesters with dogs, it was clear this was a real battle, a violent confrontation. Firemen were ordered to use the full force of their hoses on the demonstrators. The local newspapers supported Bull Connor's response, blaming the chaos on the demonstrators.
I really believe he thought somehow in some way that he was scared us. But he didn't understand the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. He didn't understand the spirit of the movement.
Television and newspaper reports captured the brutality in Birmingham and showed it to the whole nation. Outside the region, it was shocking. It was horrifying. It was unacceptable.
It brought the civil rights movement into people's homes, with many American families watching the 6 o'clock news in such a way that it simply just couldn't be ignored.
In just a week, the demonstrators' nonviolent response created a public outcry that Birmingham could not dismiss. On May 10th, symbols of segregation, like separate water fountains, became relics as city leaders signed the Birmingham Truce. In addition, a plan was agreed upon to desegregate lunch counters. This was the kind of meaningful negotiation Martin Luther King had called for in his letter. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I've heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. Let's come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. These words had inspired citizens young and old to take direct action in the streets of Birmingham. The letter was soon published in newspapers and magazines, and its power was undeniable. King had gone to Birmingham to fight injustice. In the end, his most powerful weapon was the letter he wrote from the confines of a jail cell.
Okay.
In Birmingham because in
Okay. So let's see, we're okay now? Before we go, take questions from the class. Okay. Okay, Ben, ideas about justice, like Socrates' idea of justice, Levinus's idea of love or humility, um, Aquinas, Jesus' idea of justice, love, and the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount. What method we use to do CPT? Use Google Slides? No, you have to write this out, Louisa, and for everyone else. This is a written assignment, no Google images. So you have to follow the essay format that I assigned. Okay, for Michelle, there's no MLA, no sourcing. I'm going to allow you to do it without sourcing because you can only use the ideas from the course that we've covered. If you want to do it properly, your choice. I get them all mixed up, but if you do decide to source things because you want to practice for next year, I'm okay, but it has to be a footnote or endnote. So I believe that's APA. I don't want your written part disturbed other than with a number. I could look at the bottom of the page or at the end of your assignment, so you can either have footnotes or endnotes. And then you have to also include bibliography. So I'm not requiring that because the material you use, I'm familiar with. I know where you got it from. You have permission from me to use the source, your whole package, all the ideas that we have covered in the year. Plus, you have Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter with you. I might change my mind though. You've given me an idea about maybe I will require proper sourcing, so it's good practice for university. What happens next year? So hold on to that. Good question. I'll come back to that question. I prefer that you type it. Everyone should be able to type the assignment. So as for Kevin, Ben, how is justice different from one day? You're going to have different ideas of justice. You might have corrective justice, you might have community justice, you might have legal justice, distributed justice, you might have different costs of justice, or you might have a different interpretation of justice from a different philosopher. Natural justice versus civil justice. So we'll talk more about that when we get more into justice. Where is the essay format? Essay format is in the instructions I gave you in CPT. You'll see introduction, 3 sections for your body, and then a conclusion.
In the name of the Father,
1 second,
and of the
prayer.
Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Saint Robert Bellamy, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, I'll pick this up again tomorrow to talk about it, give you a chance to look into. A few more questions before we go. Times New Roman 12 font is perfect. It doesn't have, I get double space would be good, or single space, whichever one you like. I'm okay. We'll talk more about that. Azine, yeah, we'll talk about the test tomorrow. I'm moving to next week as well. Okay, but it will not be on Tuesday because Monday is Thanksgiving and I want you to spend time with your family. Okay, we'll talk all about this tomorrow. So for tomorrow, your journal you send to me, and then your national moral law is just for homework. Okay, God bless you. Have a great day, everyone. See you. Okay, bye everyone. We'll talk more tomorrow, okay?